most people, I mean, the vast majority of Americans are not
all right, Bruce. All right. So tonight, you guys, we're being led by Mr. Christopher Bruce. He is with the ACLU of Georgia. Mr. Bruce has been leading the fight with the ACLU on multiple fronts. He is one of the most important people when it comes to going out about information about the case and what's going to be happening. So I'm going to turn most of this over to Mr. Bruce right now. He's going to explain to you the state of what things are and even how we got here in the first place. So Mr. Bruce.
Thank you, Jared. It's great to see all of you. I am still setting up a few things so I can go through a timeline really fast. I see there's a lot of people who are on a call right now. I want everyone to know no one's taking this lightly. No one except the justice system that's supposed to be fair and just. I know there's a lot of feelings out there. There's a lot of miscommunication that deals with this subject matter. I'm here to help people figure out what exactly happened, because honestly, I don't know everything. So the facts that we do know and what's going to happen afterwards. So, Jared, if you could talk for a few while I find out, I have a timeline of events that I want to pull up.
Yeah, and I can pull that up for you as well. So what we are, it is currently May the 6th. I believe it's the 6th. So the killing in question happened in February of this year. The question is why, for most people, why was there no prosecution? And so in the case of this particular thing, Mr. Bruce is going to walk us through what the rationale was for the prosecutors to not prosecute the father and son duo who were in question about the shooting. But I want to back up first and just get an overall understanding of how we got here. The first is that this is a killing that happened as a result of a series of local break-ins in the area. The break-ins were apparently being done by a black male. There was no full confirmation of a male who was actually breaking in, but the thought process was, and the BOLO report, the Be on the Lookout report, was that there was a black man committing robberies in the Brunswick area. By all accounts of the gentleman who was shot and killed, unfortunately, Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, he was not a person who fit that description. He was just a man who happened to be out running on the day in question. What really has happened, though, is that due to the alleged robberies and break-ins that were going on, once Mr. Arbery was killed, there was no prosecution further. It was assumed that he was guilty and that his death was justified from being a part of a robbery. And so over the last 2 or 3 months, there's been a lot of questions by the victims' families, as well as people on social media who've been slowly building that up. It didn't really actually reach any type of fever pitch until the last day or so when Shaun King, the internet activist, posted about the killing and particularly posted the video. There's a strong possibility that the family themselves have not seen the video, and then there is a question as to who actually leaked the video as well, because as of right now, the police have not actually officially released that video yet. And so there's a lot of moving questions, a lot of things revolving around. What I can tell you is this, though. Currently in the Brunswick area, there are a number of local people who are coming now to protest the killing. People have started marching in the streets, and as well as, this is also confirmed now, there is also the killers addressed, the father and son duo who have unfortunately killed Mr. Arbery. There have been people who have been marching towards the home of the two men in question. Now, the protesters have not done anything. They have stayed on the street. They have not entered the home or anything like that, but they have let their presence known that this will not be tolerated. Now, what we are trying to avoid right now is a lot of misinformation going out, which is why myself and Mr. Bruce are here. You're going to see a lot of tweets starting. You're going to see a lot of videos coming and commentary. And so the both of us will try to do our best I can to give you guys information as to what's happening and what's going to happen next. So I'll let Mr. Bruce go forward and continue.
Yeah, that, Jared. I think that's a great summary and a recap. To put this in perspective, Ahmaud Arbery is a 25-year-old black man who would have been celebrating his birthday on this upcoming Friday. He would have been 26 years old. And that's why, and I encourage all of you to be aware, the NAACP, headed by President James Woodall, is having a rally at the Glenn County Courthouse in Brunswick on this upcoming Friday. I'm going to Brunswick tomorrow to support the NAACP and other people who are on the ground who are doing this type of work. So the shooting happened on February 23rd. As Jared mentioned, it's May 6th, excuse me, May 6th. No one has been arrested. No one has been sent to jail. There has not been a full police report. You've seen the video, and I know the video is very graphic for all of us. But think about it. This young Black man who used to jog the neighborhood, who used to sit back and play basketball with the kids in that neighborhood. This isn't some place that he was new to or anything else. Not that that would make a difference at all. Was literally gunned down in the street at 25 years old. And the only thing that the police have to say about it is that it's justified. There's absolutely no justification to that. So the timeline of the events, February 23rd, the shooting happened. The police come out and question the two individuals. It was a father and son. The father used to work for the local district attorney's office. That's one of the reasons why it's believed that there was preferential treatment that was given. They still have not exactly identified who had the kill shot. You just know that there was a father and son who have made statements, and there were police statements about this too. You can pull up the police report. In fact, tomorrow, and remind me to do this too, Jared, I'm going to post this timeline of events too on the ACLU of Georgia's website. They've been questioning, they said that they thought that they saw this individual, like you explained before, was burglarizing the neighborhood. And they said they just wanted to talk to him. So they jumped in their pickup trucks with a shotgun and handguns, drove in front of him while yelling at him and said, "Hey, stop." And again, this is according to them. Jumped out of the pickup truck. A struggle ensued where they say that the jogger came up to them and tried to wrestle over the gun. 2 shots were fired. And you can even see from the video, the young Black man was staggering, falls down, becomes unconscious, never to wake up again. Again, police come out. Those are the statements that are in the police report. To me, that's enough justification to take them in for questioning. To say you need to relinquish your guns, which has not been stated as well, and you need to come in for questioning. Well, really, it should have been arrest anyway. After this happens, the local district attorney of Brunswick said that she was going to recuse herself from prosecuting the case because of either conflict that was happening with the individual being there prior, working for the county prior, or because of some other type of situation that was happening within there. It was a very broad and ambiguous statement. So it goes over to the district attorney's office in a neighboring county. That district attorney says, "I'm going to recuse myself too because I know the family." But issuing a statement of saying, "I'm going to recuse myself, but I believe that the killing was justified." Something that you'll never hear from a prosecutor. Then it gets put into the Atlantic Judicial Circuit, where District Attorney Tom Durden, was holding back on pressing charges and now is at the point of having a grand jury. So let me put this in perspective to you too, because grand juries have been talked about before, probably in like around 2015, 2016, where you heard a lot of sayings about Black people getting lynched, Black men especially getting killed. And this going to grand juries where police officers were found not guilty. Or actually you were not going to get an indictment bill. Because that's basically what you have. District attorneys have the power to either indict you personally under their own powers as prosecutors, or they can go to a grand jury where they impanel people from the community to listen to the evidence and say, there's enough evidence to go forward for an indictment for a trial. 2 scenarios, right? Grand jury, which you have a whole bunch of people looking at the evidence, And then the prosecutor is supposed to bring the evidence in a fair and impartial way, although it is closed off to the public, so you can't see it. And the grand jury decides on should you go for it. Or the prosecutor can decide upon itself of saying, we are going to bring charges in this case against this individual. That's what I'm asking for here. I'm asking for charges to be brought. A grand jury is not enough. So if this district attorney is thinking that, oh, well, I'm going to appease the masses by going through our due process and procedures, it's simply not enough. And the community should not think that it's enough. Just based off of this video, these people should be prosecuted under a court of law and be brought to justice.
And I want to add in one side of me. To the best of my knowledge, on the journalistic side of it is, it's not just the intent of the law. It is, in this case in particular, there is one key thing that is actually super important about this, the issue of, is there a secondary video that corroborates the men in question? Because the video that is online is actually from another man who was a part of the father and son duo who was chasing Mr. Arbery before he was killed. As of right now, there is no additional video of any potential break-in by Mr. Arbery, so it really is a case of 3-on-1, in which the one person in question is the one who is dead right now. As of right now, we do not have any new videos. Now, if the residents in question, or if there's a ring video or a home surveillance camera that appears, then that will change what is currently available. But based on all knowledge that's presented right now, there was no phone call about a break-in. It was just the two men in question, who called and said they saw a potential suspect and they wanted to make a citizen's arrest. At that point, themselves and then the third party, the man who actually recorded the killing, proceeded to follow this man, Mr. Arbery, while he was running down the street. And then at that point, they said that they were questioning him. The video in question is showing what it looks like to be Mr. Arbery trying to run around the vehicle. At that point in time, the youngest gentleman, the son, I believe, and I could be wrong, is the one who's trying to talk to him first with his shotgun in hand. At that point, an incident ensues, and then the gun itself goes off, shooting him once. The second time, the son does and the father both shoot at him, and that the second shot is what actually kills Mr. Arbery. The other thing we want to know about this is that in the case of this particular case, what the father and son are saying is that this is an issue of self-defense. And Mr. Bruce, you can back me up on this one or help me, correct me on this one. They're saying that the moment that Mr. Arbery touched the gun that was pointed at him, that he touched the gun, they had the right of self-defense. And so right now, that is what is being said on their side, that they proceeded to make a citizen's arrest. Mr. Arbery touched their gun, and then they felt threatened, and they shot and killed Mr. Arbery.
So break that down a little bit more, Jared.
Okay, so
yeah, no, I mean, like, really, just everybody just think about this.
Yeah.
You have 3 white men in pickup trucks while you see a black man jogging down the street in broad daylight. This was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. With shotguns, who jumped out the car trying to chase this guy. They actually zoom in front, and you can see it in the video, zoom in front of him to cut him off, to confront him, and yet he's the aggressor.
Right. The other thing,
yeah, does that make any sense to you?
Right, and I want to clear on one other thing. One of my colleagues at the New York Times, Mr. Richard Foster, who actually did the piece on just questioning that, by his knowledge as well, and by his questioning of people down in Glenn County, Georgia, which is in the Brunswick area, no additional people have been killed, have been called as witnesses or have been questioned in the death of Mr. Arbery. So once the phone call was made and 911 arrived, they only took the instances of the 2 men who shot him, and there was no one else who can corroborate this story. The video also does not corroborate the story as it was told to the police. So right now we're going to have an issue where, unless some new footage comes out or some other proof that there was something being stolen, broken into by Mr. Arbery, this does seem like it was an issue of murder. And as of right now, we're not necessarily sure how that's going to be taken up in the state, because as of right now, we don't have any law does not start in the state of Georgia again until June 12th. So anybody from the House and the Senate can't really take anything up outside the prosecution. So it's gonna take a while for this case to get started. The main thing I would say people should be concerned about is that it's about a month away before anyone in the state house side. That's a lot of time if you are, whether you're the prosecutor or defendant, to mount your case as to why this is or is not. The main thing is you guys are hearing it from our mouths the best that we know. There is no additional video that is known as of this time. The story in question is only being told from the 3 men who followed Mr. Arbery and eventually killed him. And the other thing is right now we have no other incidents of crime happening on that day. Now, things can change, but as of right now, this is where we are. And what we do want people to know is that, yes, there is still a pandemic going on, and yes, there is still a lot of other things going on in the world, but this story will probably be a defining moment of what the state of Georgia is going to do on the judicial side going forward.
So let me, and I have the exact dates now. So February 23rd was the shooting. On February 27th, the Brunswick District Attorney recused herself, Jackie Johnson, recused herself from the case because Gregory McMichael, the person who was the father and son team, he was the father, was an investigator for the district attorney's office. On April 10th, the Waycross Judicial Circuit Attorney recused himself in a letter. Let me quote a piece of this letter that he had put out. "We do not see grounds for an arrest of any of the 3 parties." Again, 3. So a lot of people are calling for 2 people. One person, there were 2 people, a father and son in there, but there was also that individual who was who had the video. That person is also an aggressor. If this was any other time, or if you were any other color and you are a party of this, you would have been charged in this situation. However, in this situation, this person is not even being investigated. On April 13th is when District Attorney Durden took over the case. And on May 5th, he finally released a statement saying that after careful review of the evidence presented, I am of the opinion that the case should be presented to the grand jury of Glenn County for consideration of criminal charges involved in the death of Mr. Arbery. There's a few other people that you should be concerned about, such as your attorney general and your governor. So Governor Kemp has also issued a statement to Director Reynolds, has offered resources and manpower. Director Reynolds is over the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, the GBI, to thoroughly investigate, to ensure a thorough independent investigation into the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Georgians deserve answers. State law enforcement stands ready to ensure justice is served. An Attorney General Chris Carr's statement: based on the video footage and news reports that I've seen, I am deeply concerned with the events surrounding shooting of Ahmaud Arbery. I expect justice to be carried out swiftly as possible. I stand ready to support GBI Director Reynolds, DA Durden, and the local community. May 5th, it took your governor, it took your attorney general, and it took all these other elements of going here, and yet justice still has not been served at all. So this is where we are. And this is where I want to enter into a conversation with the rest of us. How do you get justice, especially in this climate? Where does it come from? Because this is why voting matters. When your local sheriff, when your district attorney, county commissioners, or anybody else is part of a literal gang of backing each other up, of saying that there's conflict within their own system. So they push it over to another place where they also say there's a conflict, who pushes over to somebody else who has been sitting on this for a while until a video emerges. If the video hadn't emerged, most of the general public probably wouldn't have known about this. Although a black man who was unarmed, who is jogging innocently down the neighborhood is enough. Those facts alone, without video, should have been bringing up charges. But it wasn't enough until a video happened. And now they're backed in a corner of saying, oh, we demand justice. Typically, you can also ask your local congressman of trying to look into it, or ask the Department of Justice to look into a situation like this, which could be classified as a hate crime under the Shepherd-Bird Hate Crimes Act. The local congressman, Buddy Carter, if you look into his past, you may not think that he would ask the Department of Justice for that. But let's not forget, the Department of Justice is under the executive branch, which is ran by your president, Donald Trump. I ran through every layer of the judicial system, every layer that has failed the Ahmaud family and himself. There has not been justice yet. And that's what's wrong with our system. And that's something that we need to seriously look into before or even after this case happens. This happened 3 days around Trayvon Martin's killing 8 years ago. And you're telling me we haven't learned anything from that? We're still at the same point in history and time where Black men are getting lynched on the street for no reason. And where do we go from here? That's really, I think, what we need to be asking ourselves.
Oh, and one thing I want to add to that is that based on you're going to see on the media side, there's a couple things I want you guys, I've stated already kind of things about the actual facts of the case as of right now. The actual incident report itself is actually pretty short. It's maybe a page at most in length. What you're going to see now, though, is whether or not you agree with the statement of someone like Mr. Bruce or the ACLU regarding whether or not we need to have more investigations and prosecution on this, and or people who believe the homicide was justified. Based on the evidence that's presented to the best of my knowledge or any of the journalists involved with this particular case, there is very, very thin evidence to corroborate the stories of the McMichaels in question. The real issue is going to be coming once you see it on social media. You will see a general push towards either a perspective-based narrative, and I want to make sure that you guys, when you see perspective-based narrative, that you understand what perspective-based narrative is and then what the actual fact of the case is. So one of the things you start to see right now, you're going to start seeing people start mentioning more in the state of Georgia is this issue of was there a right to carry, or this issue of a citizen's arrest. And yes, you can do a citizen's arrest in Georgia, but in that case, it's not frowned. I mean, it's typically frowned upon, especially in the case of someone who could be committing a crime like burglary in this case. The other thing that you're going to see a lot more issues coming up is this issue of if he burglarized something, did he have anything regarding cuts or lacerations or a weapon on him? To the best of our knowledge and what the coroner has reported, that has not been made, but it does not look likely. Now, I said that could change, but to the best of our knowledge, any of those incidents in question, such as scratches and things like that, that would be consistent with breaking and entering, is not present, nor is a weapon. So what you're going to start seeing now is just this issue of people putting their 2 cents on the incident, saying that this person is justified for the homicide. I want to make sure that there's a couple of things I've seen online already, and I want you guys to be clear about that. One of which is whether or not he's running from a burglary or he's running from, or just running and jogging. At this point in time, we don't fully know. What I can say, though, is that the person in question, Mr. Arbery, was running. He did not have a weapon. He didn't have anything on him that looked to be consistent with burglary. So that's the first thing. The other thing you're going to see online right now is this issue of the McMichaels in question. And one thing you'll start to see more of is the third gentleman who's in the second vehicle who's recording the case. Anything right now of those three gentlemen's history right now, I would put a pin in it. What we do know is that the McMichaels in question, the father, who's 64 right now, did serve in the police department there for 7 years back in the 1980s. He still has generally good ties with former officers and some current officers. So this issue of whether or not the police helped out a former person who walked the thin blue line is probable. The thing is, right now, we don't know to the extent or the degree that people in the current department knew him or people in the prosecution knew him as well, as could be stated. This does not mean it's not true. What we can say is that right now, it's a probability, but a low probability. So we don't want you guys starting to see stuff online and people start building narratives that, you know, the police did this and right now we just do not know. The one thing I will say, though, that you're going to see a lot more people coming down and protesting. You're going to see a lot more people following around or being in front of the McMichaels house every day. That will be consistent. The moment the third gentleman's address probably comes along, that will also be consistent. The other issue is this issue of the footage itself. We do not know how the footage came out. It's a high probability that somebody either from within that police department leaked that footage, or the third gentleman in question is also the person. And so what you want to start seeing right now is you're going to start seeing new narratives pop up. And I just want to make sure, as long as you see new narratives, please come to me or Mr. Bruce or someone else in regards to what this is. Due to the growing nature of this and the pandemic in question, there will be a response, a more official response for Brian Kemp's office coming forward. They were caught flat-footed with this, and they really do not have how to respond to this. Whatever the narrative of the Brian Kemp administration is going to be with this is going to dictate how most likely how this is going to play out in the court system. Mr. Bruce will know more about that, but there's a high probability right now that Brian Kemp, a particularly conservative Republican who has to do a lot of dealings in the state that has one of the highest Black populations in America, cannot make a mistake of someone in, say, Alabama or Mississippi. So there's going to be a lot more thoughtful process about this if and when they make a really, really justifiable move on what they feel is the best course going forward. All right, and I think I see a question from a statement from someone, and right now I'm just going to read that. Do you mind if I read it, Janet? I don't know.
No, I don't mind.
Okay. There's a statement here, and the statement says, a well-funded campaign to replace those elected officials with progressive ones. A strong voter education tour highlighting judicial and law enforcement positions are filled by their votes. Stronger protections to protect their votes. Okay. I like where you're coming from on that one. I think that is the case. And Bruce, maybe you know more than I do about this. When elections would be coming up again for people, either prosecutors or people on the bench?
So yeah, typically everybody's up in 2020. I'm not sure about this district attorney. Normally district attorneys serve 4 years, and typically all of them are staggered together. So most of them are going to be up in 2022. Some are up here right now in 2020. So I haven't talked about Jackie Johnson and see if she's up for re-election this year. That's something definitely to look into. But people have been thinking about that and have been calling for her resignation due to her mishandling of this case. Campaigns are very strategic. Let me put it that way. There's a lot of areas in the state of Georgia that a lot of people are pouring a lot of money to get rid of a lot of bad elected officials. You have to look at the numbers. The numbers say, what is your vote count? What could your vote count be? And how much money do you have involved within that? That is a very simple formula. There's a lot more complications within it. But basically, if you don't have the right type of money, the right type of resources, like Janet had pointed out, you're not going to be able to do anything. But I believe that if there is enough attention that is brought to this, the people of Brunswick can hold their district attorney and other local officials accountable for this.
I see Vanessa put something as well in the comment section. She said there is a petition to add attorney Keith Higgins to the ballot to challenge incumbent DA Jackie Johnson, and they're working to get 5,000 signatures.
So we have to look at how state statute works. Typically, qualifying happens the first week of March. So you didn't qualify, then there is a lot of unconventional ways that you can add somebody to a ballot, especially in the primary. So everything's been pushed back to June 9th. I'll have to look into that as well. But it's something that you have to really realize. Jackie Johnson's got to go. I mean, the way that this has been handled, I don't think anybody's really satisfied with it, except the family that has killed another Black man here. So justice has not been served. I don't feel confident within this prosecutor, and I don't feel confident within the way that things have been handled either.
Okay, and I have a question for you, Bruce, which is, when a case like this with a prosecutor, is this a statewide vote, or is this like more of a local vote?
This would be a local vote. So this would be the constituents of Brunswick, because the issue happened there. So the district attorney in Brunswick has jurisdiction. It gets kind of weird once you get down into Southwest Georgia, because they're divided up into certain circuits, and district attorney circuits and judicial circuits that district attorneys are over. So like in the city of Atlanta and metro Atlanta area, your district attorney for DeKalb County is Sherry Boston, and she only serves DeKalb. You have a district attorney in Fulton and everywhere else. And it's basically because you have the population to justify it. You have the type of workflow there. Once you get into smaller rural areas, you really don't have as much. So district attorneys could be carrying around a whole swath of area. It's not really the case right here. Brunswick has a district attorney, and that's Jackie Johnson. Jackie Johnson needs to be held accountable for it. And the voters in Brunswick need to hold her accountable.
And I will say, on the more national level, I know there's some people who've been looking this online, this issue of calling this particular incident a lynching. And there is currently some legislation that is still sitting right now that's made it through the House. It is the Emmett Anti Lynching Act, and it is currently being held up in the Senate. Current Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has not moved on the legislation. Prior to this incident, he did not make any movements towards this. He has stated that he didn't believe that it was necessary to push through this legislation. I'm not sure right now if that's going to change what Mitch McConnell is looking at doing going forward. But currently, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act still is on, just sitting in the Senate to be moved forward. This may be a good time if you are thinking about getting in the vote 2020, regardless of your political affiliation, is that to get your local state senators here in Georgia, we have two, to really push that going forward. And so this is the opportunity to get that bill pushed through. And it's sitting there and it's ready for the votes, and it's ready for Mitch McConnell to push it forward.
I mean, we're really thinking about this. It really does come down to voting. It really comes down to who is holding elected officials accountable. And you want change that is happening in your neighborhood, your community, or your state, you have to hold people accountable. And that doesn't mean that you just need to vote. I tell people all the time, voting is the least of the things that you can do. Literally, like, if you're not voting, I'm not going to say what it is, but just because you vote, that's not the end of your civic duty, because there are so many layers that happen before it even gets to a vote. Like what's put out here with Vanessa by saying Attorney Keith Higgins. If you weren't satisfied with your district attorney in the first place, you should have put up somebody else to. And even before that, you should have had conversations with Jackie Johnson about police procedures and what is holding people accountable for certain things. Like, voting every 4 years is not enough. You need to know your local elected officials by name. And not only do you need to know them, they need to know you and know that if you're talking to them, you are a voice in your community, because it's very simple. I know that if somebody calls me, they've probably talked to about 10 or 12 other people before they've even called me, just to have this type of conversation. Elected officials know the same thing. If you have a problem, that's why they are very responsive to it.
One other thing I want to bring up too, to back up Bruce, is that there is currently a Senate race that's going to be happening in 2020. And so right now, our current senators are Kelly Loeffler, who is appointed special by governor for a special replacement of our outgoing senator, as well as David Perdue. They will be running again in November this year. And so before you get there, it might be a good chance to both contact them. I put their contact information there for you guys to call and email if you would like to as well, or share that information to, one, to get the anti-lynching bill passed, and then two, to put pressure on them to make sure that if there is going to be prosecution in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, that is fair and is just. And so these are two things right now you have in the comments right there on how to contact both of them right now. So they both are in the state of Georgia right now, and so this will be a good time to contact them or contact their offices.
Putting that in perspective, so Perdue will be on the June 9th primary vote, as well as other class of Democrats running against them. So you'll be either voting for Senator Perdue or one of the many Democrats who's going to be running against Perdue in a general election. Your other election deals with what you call a jungle primary. Thank you, Carl. With a jungle primary where you have Democrats and Republicans running against each other. And that will be in the November general election coming up. So I don't want people to get this confused. There's Senate seat A, which is held by Perdue, and Senate seat B, which is held by Senator Loeffler at this time.
Right. The other thing is someone just put in the comments, I believe it's Carly. They put out Teresa Tomlinson, who is also running. She is running for U.S. Senate as well. She put a statement out currently about the need of investigation in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. You can look that up in the comments right there. It's listed for everyone below. And so you're going to see a lot more calls from that from the Democratic side of things in terms of challenges. I will say this, though, right now. The best thing is to both still be trying to contact both Governor Brian Kemp's office, as well as our current senators, as well as our local officials to put pressure on this particular case. We will see a lot more incidents going forward, unfortunately, with people, if there is a trial and there does come up this issue of people being for and against, there's a high probability also of this issue of astroturfing, which I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, but we've kind of seen it with the Michigan protests. And astroturfing is when you take something and you make essentially a false reality real. And so there could be a high probability of astroturfing where somebody finds one element of this particular case and blows out a proportion on the internet. And I want you guys just to be aware that there could be astroturfing if this goes forward any longer.
Wait, what I want people to have in their minds right now is that Georgians are going through a very traumatic period. Nationally, Georgia does not look good at all, right? And we haven't for weeks. We have a senator who has accusations of using her inside information to dump stock to save money after the COVID-19 crisis. Actually, it was both of them. It was Purdue and Loeffler. You have a governor who came out and misspoke about he just learned that you could be contagious. Then you have the same governor who comes out and says, hey, everything's fine. We need to open up. Why you still have more and more people dying? And now this happened. You've had data and statistics. What got to me is that the data and statistics showed that more Black people were being impacted by COVID-19 than anyone else. And once that was heard, oh, it's okay to open up the economy. Strange level events that have happened. And then we turn into this killing that happened on February 23rd. That happened on February 23rd. It didn't even hit national media or really the Atlanta market. So this is just a culmination of things that have been happening in the state of Georgia. We need to make sure it comes to an end, because what happened to Ahmaud Arbery shouldn't happen again. It's happened before, and it's happened plenty of times before. We just have to figure out when do we say enough is enough.
I want to take one quick segue. I know you guys have been on here for a while. There's two things I think that some people, this could be very traumatic, just the idea of people being killed or just the current temperature of the United States. There's two people in particular that I would love for you guys, if you have issues related to stress or anxiety, or just people who have information on kind of how to cope with what's going on in the world. They are Dr. Ayanna Abrams. She is a national renowned psychologist here in Atlanta. She has a practice here called Ascension Behavioral Health. And so I'm going to put that tag below. But she does a lot of things on her Instagram account that are for free, just telling people tips on how to cope with trauma, how to deal with traumatic events, how to deal with things personally. That doesn't require you necessarily to go out and see a therapist, but that just could be something you can do on your own. That's not saying that it's not in replace of therapy, but it's some things that individually you can do. Again, her name is Dr. Ayanna Abrams, because I understand this could be very, very traumatic and off-putting for people. The other one is another person, for those who are religious, is a person named John Onwuchekwa. He is a pastor here in Atlanta. He wrote a book on prayer. In particular, he wrote a book on prayer for people who don't pray or don't believe in religion, or people who are questioning God. And so I think both of them in particular are both really good for this time. And I'll put both of those in the comments section so you guys can read it. But I think both of those will have information that can help a lot of us out, because a lot of this is overwhelming. Some of us are angry. Some of us are questioning things. Some of us are down and depressed. But I think we need to start thinking about our mental health as well going forward. And especially as more and more information and more vitriol comes out about this.
Ken, you want to open up for comments or questions?
Yeah, we can. If anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to let us know. Okay. Now, if you don't, it's okay as well.
I just think it's worse when Trayvon Martin, it's worse because the situation's much worse and Pandora's box has been opened. So, you can do whatever you want if you're white and have a gun. It's even more so. So it's just exceptionally scary.
No, and that's real. I mean, a lot of people are going to feel that way, and it's pretty justifiable. We do not have a good history with gun ownership and white men, and I'm going to be honest about that. So no, I don't think it does feel like open season. As somebody who has to walk in this black skin every day, I do have a certain level of anxiety when it comes to it, and I think that's real.
Rightly so. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Vanessa.
no, go ahead. I wrote it down, so I'll remember. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna reiterate what you were saying, Kathy. These things are happening. They've always been happening, and the question is, why haven't they gotten the attention that they deserve? Why hasn't justice been served? And who is the people who are watching these type of incidents going on? Why is there such a lag behind in public opinion when it comes to this? Because really, if we hadn't have found out about this, if there wasn't a video, you could really question, would there even be a call for a grand jury hearing?
Yeah.
I still think it's an insult that it's just a grand jury hearing. These people are not arrested in the first place and put on charges for murder, right? So even with all of this attention, you're still getting the lowest level of justice and investigation that needs to be happening. Like it really shocks the mind and the conscience of, do you believe that African Americans and African American men are humans and they should be treated in a certain way as human beings? And we've seen in our justice system has failed us time and time again.
Plus, it's like with the protests, if it would be reversed, they would have gone and arrested the guys in their home.
Oh man,
That's-
arrested, killed them.
Killed, right. They would have been, yeah.
Killed them. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think there would have been a question.
Porches. Yeah.
Right.
No. I was just going to say, when you were talking about the district attorney and the sheriff, it took me back to, was it Mike Brown and the district attorney that they finally voted out? But I think it's one of those things that people don't know, that those positions are voted in. And you would have thought, or you would have hoped by now, that it would have been more broadly, it would have been like more public information and people would be more aware. But I think I don't know if it's intentional lack of information or education, but we're clearly still in the same spot. People don't even know these positions are elected, like judges.
I honestly blame it on the education system. And people, I go back and forth with people all the time. But if you really think about it, the education system does not teach you much. It is a modern day daycare. And I think people with children are realizing that right now, because they are going through hell with their own children, and they're realizing the value of teachers altogether. But your education system does not teach you about civics. It doesn't teach you how to engage elected officials. It doesn't teach you how to balance a checkbook or anything that has to do with financial literacy. It really fails us as far as preparing us as adults in society. I learned this information as an adult going through law school. And even in law school, it really didn't go through everything else. It just gave me the skills equipped to really figure this stuff out. We need to educate people because the education system is not doing it. And once we can do that, we can hold people accountable. So individuals, it doesn't matter where. If you truly believe in justice, you will hold these three individuals accountable for their acts that they had. So I agree with you, Vanessa. It's just, the question is, what do we do about it? There was a lot of times that I've had open conversations with my father about voting, and that for a while he wasn't interested in it. And it was a continuous conversation until he started to realize how impactful it is on our lives. Remember when Obama ran for office? And then I was talking to some people about, wow, Obama has the best policies. Obama has this, Obama. Some people are saying, well, I'm just going to vote for Obama because he's black. Okay. I mean, that's a reason. But if we can get people involved in that way, and this is what I fear for this upcoming election, vote for who you want to vote for. But you do not have somebody exciting on the ticket who's not catching people's attention, we may be going through this same round, if not worse, going forward. Okay? America is in a very traumatic place, state of mind right now. Can you take another 4 years of this? I don't know if we're going to be able to last this next year, this for the rest of 2020. So can you take another 4 years?
Is someone exciting on the ticket enough though? Like, if you're not into politics, doesn't matter how exciting that person is. If you don't understand the value of that person and how they actually affect your life, it doesn't matter if they're exciting or if they're whatever, right? Like I feel like there's like I said, like that base level understanding of education as to like why these things matter. Because, you know, people say, I don't vote because my vote doesn't matter, and those people are going to Washington anyway. But then there are judges and district attorneys that they don't even realize are on ballots.
It's like some type of way there has to be an entertainment value to it. Because I'm not going to lie. Honestly, I learned about the district attorney, so forth, from the show Billions. Like you said, Chris, like, I mean, the last time that they talked about, you know, social studies and the 3 branches and stuff like that, you're taught in middle school before you even understand how it applies to life. And, you know, they don't really revisit it past 6th grade, really, when you're doing the Georgia studies course. And that's it. And like you said, if you're not in that world, but just like Jared, we were working on a documentary back in college, and media really, like, that's why I was so passionate about it and what we did, because media is the most influential medium to reach people. Like, how many people can tell you how the presidency works from watching Scandal? How many people, you know, it's so many things that you learn about. And I know it can be taken lightly, but honestly, it may have to be some entertainment value tied to it, whether it's a drama that deals specifically with, you know, this type of genre, like how you deal with it, put out in mass production. Like, those are going to be the ways to reach people, because other than that, like, to see it dramatized, but at least people learn from that. Because other than that, like you said, it's about educating people. But just like Jared, when we used to be in those communities before they got torn down, it was 2 or 3 people at the meeting. And you're talking about hundreds of families that were impacted when they were tearing down these houses here in Atlanta. And it's just like, unfortunately, education isn't the sexy thing that draws people. It's more so entertainment value of some sort, whether it's a music being created around there, whether it's a show, some sort of entertainment value intertwined with it, I think would be a solution of some sort.
Jess, I completely agree with you. And I don't know if somebody was going to say it, but I would prefer people thinking that learning about politics is a drama within itself. Like, I mean, if you really look into this, I mean, we've had state representatives this year who've been involved in potential murder cases because somebody had called them after they had a hit and run, ran over a guy who was in a ditch dying, literally dying for hours. Called a state representative who called a chief of police. No one called 911 until it was too late. Like, that's real life. You don't even have to make this stuff up. So Jess, I completely agree with you. And I think you see it in shows right now like Blackish or Black AF and stuff like that. They try to mix in entertainment with a message.
Yeah.
And I think they do a pretty good job with it. The best one of those shows, though, that I've seen is the Carmichael Show. 1, because it's hilarious, and 2, it confronts real social issues, like things that have been happening today. Unfortunately, it was canceled too. But I recommend people, 1, just pay attention to the news. Like Jess, you had talked about the news is a great medium. It's always called the fourth branch of government. You have three branches, but media is supposed to be the fourth branch. The news is supposed to hold the elected officials accountable and ask the hard questions of why these policies are being made and who is pushing them through. And they're supposed to inform us about what else is happening. There are definitely skews out there, and there is fake news. So again, you have to be educated with what you can think of. Just think for a moment about how things are happening that are around you. Because really, I can tell you from personal experience, your state elected officials or your local elected officials, anybody, they are literally somebody next door who just put their name on a ballot. They are no smarter than you. They don't know anything more than you. You are probably smarter than them on most occasions. Believe me, I talk to them. You really are. They need to hear from you about the right policy stances that is best for your community and your family. And if you can do that, you can really guide them. I cannot tell you how many times I get phone calls from elected officials about helping them understand policy. Or how many times I have to tell my staff, no, you cannot write a 5-page memo. You have to break that down into a 1-pager. Otherwise, nobody's going to read your bill or your legislation. It is scary that these people control a multi-billion-dollar budget and yet don't read what actually goes into it. So you need to be up to date for it, and you need to make sure that whoever represents you is up to date on this information.
I have a question.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Chris, I have a question. This is Carly. Just to get back to like what we can do in the context of this, tragedy. Glenn County is a firmly conservative Republican county. It is not Chatham County. If you look at the demographics, there are about 57,000 voters in that county, and only 13,000 are Black. So voting is important, and we all need to vote, and we need to increase the vote, our turnout. But in places like Glenn County, where it's just going to be hard to elect a progressive prosecutor, which is part of the reason why we're in this situation. We're not in a Fulton, a DeKalb, a Gwinnett, or even a Chatham, any of these sort of transitional counties. So how do the demographics play in the strategy? And then what is the strategy taking into account the demographics of the county?
So yeah, I think, Carly, what you're bringing up is exactly what we were talking about before, about voting someone out and putting somebody else in. So I agree with your assessment about how red Glenn County is. And Glenn County can be a Republican county with Republican values and everything else. I'm talking about really common decency of holding life and preserving that. So I'm not one of the type of people who is saying one party values life more than another party. I'm the type of person who's saying you are a person, you are an American, and you need to treat other Americans as fairly as possible. Going to what you're specifically saying about what can happen as far as a game plan in Glenn County, I'm going to Glenn County tomorrow to specifically talk to people on the ground in Glenn County about what they can do. I don't want to be somebody from Atlanta saying, this is how we need to change Glenn County. I would love to talk to the people in Glenn County and say, these are the type of changes that we want made. And one of the things that I know that they want made is justice for this young Black 25-year-old who would be turning 26 in February. So if they want to get rid of their elected officials, I will be down there. I've got a budget to hire a community organizer to stay down there and make change for specific areas and people. So if you know anybody, and Carly, you know people all across the state, let me know.
Oh, I was just saying, actually, Joel is from there, my husband.
Yeah,
and
Joel.
well, yeah, I mean, just for everybody else. I know you know that, but
yeah.
But Joel is his family is down. He's from there. He actually went to high school with the guy who did it. Like they know each other, same age, graduate, same class, they were actually in band together. So that's why he was so appalled. Like he was like, this is somebody who running down the street, he'd be like, oh, hey, Joel, what's up? And he did this. So we actually have a lot of family out there. They've been reaching out to us, and I can definitely put you in touch with so many people down there.
Please do. Please do.
Look, Bruce, I was about to volunteer. You need me to go? I can stay with my auntie. I'm from Brunswick too, Jess.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
Right.
Headed down with Mondale. He's one of the heads of Black Voters Matter. He's flying down from Philly tomorrow, and I'm renting a car. I'm going to Lysol that entire car.
Listen, you need to put like some plastic and tape it like my Uber driver and create a barrier.
I know. People are very creative these days. People are very creative. So I just want to say, even in COVID-19, these type of situations do happen. And we need to be very responsive. I'm going to let y'all into something a little bit more personal. I remember House Bill 481, the abortion ban bill that was passed in 2019, taking away women's rights to choose what they can do with their own bodies. I was one of the people of saying, stay and fight. Something that Stacey Abrams has said very loudly. There's no reason to leave Georgia. We need to stay and fight and make change in Georgia. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Y'all know I love the Falcons, the Hawks, and everything that's in Atlanta. I was about to leave.
What?
I know, crazy, right? No, it was when Governor Kemp said, we are going to open up Georgia for business. I said, you really do not give a damn about people's lives at all. And I was like, there is no stay and fight. This isn't a fight. This is literally a massacre that you're doing. And it's the least of these that are going to be most impacted. So it gets to a point where you're just saying, what am I fighting for? These people do not care about life. And you know why? Because they're not the ones who are going to be affected. Everybody's seen the memes about calling up the governor's mansion to ask for tours.
Closed.
Right. Oh, it's closed. Oh, it's closed. Your house is closed, but the rest of the economy is open. Kind of like the gun legislation where you can carry anywhere. You can carry guns pretty much anywhere in the state of Georgia, except the Georgia General Assembly, where all the elected officials are, who made the law. It makes sense. They are the ruling class who's going to protect their own interests until you find the other general populace who actually has an uprising to take back the rights and the justice that they deserve.
So my question, because I can't with them. My question that I was gonna, or not even necessarily a question per se, was just going back to the whole citizen's arrest piece of this BS. Doesn't that, and maybe I'm understanding it wrong, but from what I've researched, aren't they supposed to have witnessed a felony? And it's just like, I think for me, what frustrates me so much is even if he was breaking into the house, the consequence of robbery is not death. And it's like this whole attempt at a justification is just citizen's arrest? Who has ever citizen's arrested anybody? Anybody else citizens arrested somebody?
I haven't. I was kind of tempted to actually try it out one day.
We should start. That should be the
and just be like, oh, got it. Just do citizens arrest on white people that start walking
you have to go to their house. Can't you go to the killer's house now? We can, arrest them.
Citizens arrest them.
And just do a citizen's
we
arrest.
Witnessed the felony. We witnessed it. We need to citizens
And you
arrest.
got videotape to back it up, right?
Videotape.
Why are we not using them on them? We got video. Time to citizens arrest.
Actually, I never thought about that, Vanessa. Thank you. You're always good that's why I appreciate you drinking wine right now. You're always good for me.
Citizens arrest, bro.
Citizens arrest. You know what? I don't know.
We don't have to wait on them. We can citizens arrest.
We can citizens arrest. That's what they said that they did.
It's like within the rules, right? We witnessed a felony. We have it on tape. Boom. Citizens arrest. We just solved it.
I just thought that was the biggest piece of crap I've ever heard in my life when they said it was a sin. I mean, you have so many different stories about what they're claiming right now. Some is citizens arrest. Some people are saying stand your ground. Some people are saying self-defense.
Because it won't turn out the same for us. You right?
I mean, we can find out what defense they want to put up if you bring them to justice and you put them on trial, so they can have a lawyer who can explain this is the defense that they have for shooting this unarmed black man who was jogging down the street. Please put that in front of some people, please. But again, you're dealing with a system of saying this. You had 3 district attorneys at this time who have looked at this case and still have not brought charges. That is a problem.
Yeah.
It's just holding them accountable for it.
So, sorry, excuse me, you guys. I gotta hang up on you guys really fast. I would love to keep the conversation going on another channel. But thank you guys. Thank you, Mr. Bruce, for helping us out. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'll send you guys all this information as well on social media. Or if you guys have signed up to the newsletter, I'll put it there as well so you guys can figure out what to do. If you guys want to help Bruce with the ACLU, either through the ACLU, either by donating or volunteering, I'll put that link in there as well so you guys can see how to volunteer or donate with the ACLU.
Okay, good, because I'm gonna have that timeline of events up there too. I'll be tweeting while I'm in Brunswick. Jess, everybody put me in touch with anybody you know in Brunswick.
Yeah.
King,
I
I'm gonna.
sent Joel your info and he's gonna reach out. And I just want to say, as fellow Panthers, I'm so proud of you guys. I'm way to take initiative and really impact the community. So thank you guys for leading the charge. But I sent somebody else. She's literally in the thick of it. I just texted her. She's in Brunswick. I'm gonna connect her with you, and then Joel will text you the other guy who's really been working with the family. So we already got that in motion.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much. Yeah, good. It's good Panther family.
Thank you guys so much, and I will hear from you guys shortly.
All right, y'all. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
You tell us to stay black.